I felt like anytime I would work at a company, I'd have all these ideas of how this product could be better and exactly zero control.
Hey, Maddy, what's
Yay.
up? Welcome to the
What's
show.
up? Thanks for having me.
We're right now in the middle of collaboration on new Figma course together. That being said, because we're working remotely, us saying almost all of our communication is kind of like either email, messages, notifications, and we don't get to actually chat like
Exactly.
real people. So
Totally.
this is an awesome excuse to hear what's up on your end of things.
There's a lot going on over here.
Tell me. I want to.
Oh my
I
gosh.
want to hear all about it.
Well, all different kinds of things. I'm really jumping back into freelancing, which has been fun. I've put some more focus on YouTube in the past year. I just go in phases of what I enjoy working on, and I'm in a freelancing groove right now, getting some projects I'm excited about. We also have just moved into our new house. So this is one of the first things I'm recording in my new office. I just got these little things up on the wall, so it's
really nice. I saw the
starting to
setup,
come
kind of like
together.
the frame for the course, and I was like, oh, that looks
Yeah.
so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So just getting settled, in a new space is always like kind of jarring in general. And then, just a lot of new things going on this summer for me.
Is this kind of like first house that you buy together with your
Yes.
husband and stuff?
Yep, exactly. And it's been a long time coming. We were working on renovating this house for 2 years. So
Oh my God,
it's been a long
crazy.
time coming. Good to be in here. But yeah.
But it's in the same area of the country?
Yes, we're still in Colorado. So it's all, similar stuff, same friends, all of that, but just like getting settled. And like when you build a new house, like there's no, like a closet is just an empty room. You gotta put up the shelves and all of this stuff. And, our house is something we're growing into. So there's a lot of spaces like that.
Yeah, for sure. So for us, it was kind of like weird. We moved into a rental house and then we ended up buying it so that we didn't have to do anything. We were already living there.
Amazing.
But you do have this fantasy of, oh, if I would build my own house, here's what I would do. So you actually got to fulfill all of your fantasies now?
Yes. And it was not as glamorous as it was in my head.
What, the
But,
process
yeah.
or the end result?
The process for sure. I obviously had to make some compromises, like in terms of budget and stuff. So I'm happy with the end result, though obviously I could have gone a lot further if, money were no object. But the process was rough. We had, and this happens to a lot of people, but we had a contractor who actually, kind of scammed us. And
I
at
hear
this
this
point
all
in
the time.
time, yeah, it's so common, unfortunately. But at this point in time, he actually owes us money. So we're going back and forth with his lawyer and all this stuff. And he's only
Crazy.
able to pay like 10% of what he owes us. So we're in the hole way more than we thought going in. But, you just gotta take it for what it is after a
Yeah.
while and just kind of give up control. But yeah.
And
We're
have
kind of at the
things-
fun part now.
No, I wanted to ask. So it's good that you said you're in the fun part. I wanted to
Yeah.
ask if anything changed from a financial stress kind of situation. I don't know. For me, like we had to take mortgage, and then now there's like inflation and like prices are going up. So it's kind of like puts us in this weird, I don't know,
Yep.
if stressful position. But it's like, oh my
yeah.
God,
We're
You're
in
there
the
as well.
same boat.
Got it.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Cool.
And my
But
husband
you
just
got
started
your-
a new job. So,
Okay, congratulations.
Yeah. So that's good. Everyone's okay. We're going to be fine. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are stressed about financial things at the moment. It's just a weird time for sure.
It's a very weird year for us as well
Yeah.
in Flux. It's kind of like, and because we've talked about this, but it's
Yeah.
just like COVID was like weird for a lot of people, and it was, also financially unstable. But weirdly enough, for us in the kind of like online courses space, it was actually good because people were home and studying and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then this year, it's kind of like, something has changed, and I think everybody's feeling it. So
Yeah, and there's a
it's
whole
kind of like,
new sort of round of layoffs happening now in tech. So I'm hearing that from, people in the online space. And I'm also hearing a similar thing from my friends working in tech companies. And so you're never safe.
Yeah, for sure. I think safety is just like when you're working at a company, it's mostly an illusion that you're safety because you're
Yeah.
like, I'm going to work there next month. That's what you think, right?
Exactly. You never know. You just never know.
So you've mentioned you were kind of like going back and forth between working in tech and then freelancing. And so tell me about that. Why do you make the switch?
Yeah.
What's like the pros and cons in each?
Yeah, oh my gosh, there's hundreds of pros and cons in each. So I started out, like I didn't realize when I graduated college that like working for yourself was even a thing. Or I knew some people who did it, but it was not on my mind at all.
What did
So
you study in college? Was it like
I
design
studied
related?
graphic design, yep. So didn't do a whole lot of coursework in like UI UX or even web design for that matter. But the first job that I ended up getting out of college was at a tech company, just sort of by chance. And that's really what got me, down the path that I've gone down is I learned on the job like UI UX when it was a fairly new field. Like I was called a digital designer. I wasn't even called a UI UX designer. But what I was doing was very much UI UX, what I still
But
do
were there
today.
people on job to help you study, or is it just like I'm on my own? I need to figure
There
this
were
out.
people, yep, it was honestly such a fantastic first job, and I feel really lucky now talking to people who are looking for something like this to get into the field. I had a team of two sort of, I guess, managers and three other designers who were more or less on my level. And they taught me, everything I needed to know. I had no idea what like Sketch was. That's what we were using at the time. Hadn't even heard of it until my first day on the job. And
It wasn't
so
required to get the job.
nope, literally wasn't. All
That's
that was
awesome.
required was my graphic design portfolio.
These days, it's like 20 years of Figma experience. Dude, it's not even exists for 20 years.
Exactly. So I really got lucky with the timing of when I got into it. But anyway, that was my first gig and I was like, oh, I like this. Like I really like the practical side of design, like usability and things like that. I just, there was no pressure either. Like I learned it on the job and I was like, oh, like this is fun, and so I liked it. And then I went through a phase where I was like, I'm kind of bored of it. I didn't see myself doing this. I didn't study this. So like, what else is out there? Like I liked this, but I was like, I don't want to pigeonhole myself. So
It's, by the way, it's worth
first time-
mentioning that it's kind of like, it's very different from graphic design. I feel like it's a different part of the brain, right? Like graphic design,
1000%.
visual, it's more like right side of the brain. UX
Exactly.
is very kind of like logical left side.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was really missing that like creative, you can certainly be creative working in tech, but not as much. So I was missing that a little bit. And at the same time, I was starting to hear about these people online who were going off on their own and like working for clients. And I would sort of see on social media, like, those cheesy things that you saw in the beginning of like the online course world that was like how to get your first like 5-figure client and like whatever, and I was like, what is this? And so I was just like interested in it. I was like, people are making money like working for themselves.
Wait, you didn't have any designer friends who were like, you studied graphic design. None of your friends went out to freelance?
Not really. And if they were freelancing, it was more on like a contracting basis where they would work for a company for, a certain period of time. It wasn't so much like grinding to get clients. And even like my professors that I had, I remember they worked for themselves, but it was always sort of like in their community. Like they only had clients because they knew people who were living in the same city as them who were like had this big successful business already and wanted some design work. It was not so much you could be a designer in Colorado or Pittsburgh where I was living at the time and work with, startups around the world or like little small businesses that you never would meet except for if you were online. So that whole thing was new to me. Like I was just curious about it. And so, I actually started a branding and web design freelance business with my friend that I had graduated like my design program with. And we moved out to Colorado together randomly. We were both moving there separately. Like my now husband got a job in Colorado, so we had to move there. And she separately was moving to Colorado for something. And so we were like, let's start this business together. And so that was my first taste of working for myself. And
it's not even, by the way, freelancing. It's like starting an agency with a partner.
Yeah.
It's like even more elaborate than that. Yeah.
It was. And in hindsight, it was ambitious, but we learned a lot.
Did you have like a plan, like how to get clients or whatever?
Kind of. We, at the time, it was not the smartest. It was very on a whim. At the time, we were like getting a couple inquiries from just like friends of friends of like, could you do this logo for me? And I'm talking like this person would pay us like a couple $100s. Like we weren't really seeing anything that promising, but we were like, let's just roll with it. And we ended up doing like okay to the point where we could both support ourselves for, I think we did this for, 2 years actually, a year and a half or 2 years. And we made enough to like support ourselves. You know, we both had roommates and that kind of thing. So it wasn't that successful, but it was enough to like give me the taste of being a business owner and really kind of enjoying that, like enjoying the admin part of it.
How did you split the work and responsibility between both of you?
Yeah, that's where we went wrong. So we weren't really clearly communicating on how we should split things up. And that was our downfall. We had a little bit of, a rough patch, and we have since patched it in our friendship, but I don't think we were the best for working together. And so, yeah, that was a hard lesson to learn.
I have so many friends with this story.
Yeah.
Some of them don't end well, actually. Some of them lose the friendship.
Yeah, which is really hard. And it's so much harder than you think. Like you think, because I had a little bit more of the business mind and she had a little bit more of the creative mind. But at the same time, we both were hands-on doing the design work. And so it was hard to determine who would sort of take home what for what projects. If someone brought in a project, we determined, it would be more fair if that person, got to choose who did the project. And then, we had all these percentages and all this stuff. And it just like, in the end, if two people have even a slightly different idea of how the business is going to go and they're not communicating, it's not going to go well. And that's kind of the trap we fell into. But that's when I was starting to feel a little uncertain about the future of that business is actually when I got the opportunity to work with Adobe for a year. So that kind of put me back in the company,
How did that happen? Yeah, I saw it on your Instagram bio that you did a residency. What does that even mean? I'm not sure what it means or how you got it.
So the Adobe residency the program has changed, like changes a bit here and there, and I'm not up on, what the program exactly is like at the moment. But when I applied and when I worked there, it was a year-long program where you would basically be sponsored by Adobe. So they would pay you a really nice salary for 1 year to essentially work on like community projects with them. So being like an
Is there like a Colorado office for Adobe or?
There might be a satellite office. I worked with Adobe entirely
remotely?
during COVID. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the program actually was supposed to be about 25% like either in person or traveling to speak at events and stuff. And unfortunately, all the events I spoke at were online and, I was never able to go and visit their offices or anything. But essentially what it is halftime.
Wait, how did you get into this? How did you heard about it? How did you apply?
I heard about it. I was following Patricia Rainers on Instagram. Do you know her? She's a big UX.
No.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know.
You'd probably recognize her. She is
I'm probably
from
following
Germany.
her, but yeah.
You're probably following her.
Yeah. I just haven't logged into Instagram for a while.
Totally. So I just ended up following her on social media just because, I'm a designer and she's a big designer on social media. And I was like, this person has Adobe in their profile, but like they're doing all of these cool like personal projects. And so I looked into it, and what I found was that she was at the time a part of the year-long Adobe Creative Residency. It's basically half-time. They sponsor you to do personal projects, like what you want to do. They'll pair you up with like a research expert within the company to help you learn how to do UX research. It's actually for creatives of any kind. So when I did it, there were only two, me doing UX and someone doing photography. But the 5 or 6 years before that with the program, there were 5 or 6, even up to 10. So different prints, different like areas of design and drawing even. And so that person would pair up with someone doing like Illustrator for iPad or whatever. So you're basically an evangelist for Adobe, and you also get to work on personal projects that like ideally build your portfolio to go and do what you want to do next. So that was the residency, and it was kind of, a mix between working for yourself and working for a company. I was not on a product team at Adobe. I got to shadow the product team at Adobe. It's more of kind of like an internship, like a paid internship type thing. But yeah, that's what the residency is.
How do you feel about Adobe? I mean, I grew up on Photoshop, and my first few jobs were like fully Creative Suite.
Yep.
But I feel like in graphic design and in advertising, it's like you gotta use Adobe, and in web design and now kind of like UX UI, they're getting a bad rap, and now like everybody's like, if I can avoid them, I will avoid them, and they're like sad that they said that they purchased Figma. Like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have mixed opinions because I will say when I was applying to the Adobe residency, I wasn't yet into Figma or anything. I had used Sketch, and then I had started using Adobe XD because I had that Adobe plan. I was like integrated in their workflow. I thought that was the only option. It kind of was the only option for a minute, And so when I applied, I was like, yeah, like Adobe was still like, the company. And it was kind of during COVID. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is my interpretation. During COVID and during my residency, when the switch, like the, block started to fall the other direction of people being like, wait, now Figma is popular. I now know how to use it. Why would I ever go back to Adobe? The whole thing that you're saying. So I went into it feeling like great about Adobe. I had an amazing experience working with everyone I worked with at Adobe. So I have this like in my head, the company and the people who work there are great, like people. But I can see how if you have had no sort of like personal ties to Adobe, you'd be like, F them. Why is this so expensive? All of this stuff. And I get it now. Like I entirely use Figma, and most of my friends entirely use Figma.
So I think it depends. I always kept using Photoshop. Even I'm a YouTuber, so I do my thumbnails in Photoshop. I always, even if I do website, you need to cut out the person from the background or do like color adjustment and stuff like that. You only need a photo editing software. I also edit videos, so I need Premiere. So I'm using a few of them. So for me, the price is actually like I get everything for a single price. It's all right. And right now, I don't know if you've played with the generative AI field, which is kind of like, okay, mind blowing.
Yeah, I've seen it. I haven't played with it yet.
Wow, this is just like incredible. And I think it's kind of like step in the right direction to show that Adobe is far from gone. And so I think like a lot of people in the web design or UX UI don't need it.
Yeah.
So they are kind of like trashing on it. And it's just like, I don't need it. Although I do think that if you're only mastering Figma or something like that, and you can't manipulate visuals, you're going to be limited, right?
100%.
In the type of visuals that you can do. But I also understand kind of like from a product standpoint, like Figma is so snappy and fast and intuitive, and like Photoshop or the other Adobe software now feel kind of like heavy, clunky.
Exactly.
Takes a while. So it's kind of like, does
That's what I
feel
feel
like
like.
more old school. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I feel like they could do. Like, I love that they're introducing all this cool, like, new tech and stuff. And I think it's going to be kind of life changing. Like you said with Premiere, I can't wait till they start to bring some of that into Premiere to where you can start to like cut down on editing time. I feel like there's so much you
I
could
mean, you can
do
already do
using
AI
AI.
captions, I think, in Premiere. So
Captions.
yeah.
Yeah. And like there are certain softwares that use AI to cut out pauses in
Yeah, filler
your.
time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. This kind of thing. Like I feel like there's huge potential in that. And if they really go that direction, I feel like it could be huge. But it does still.
Yeah.
Good.
So I just wanted to share something funny. So
Yeah.
we had, we just had a videos for a new course, for a new framework course. And it turns out that the editor missed out on some spots where, the presenter told the guy, hey, cut this out or something
Yeah.
like this. And so somebody on my team basically took all of the transcripts for the course, threw
Yeah.
it into an AI and told him, find out which videos have mistakes in them. And the AI basically went and told him on video 6 in minute 34, he's saying, please cut this out. The AI figured out exactly
Oh my
what needs to be
gosh.
edited out. Now, if that's going to be integrated into the editing software, I mean, editing time is going to be
Huge.
like significantly, yeah, it's so cool.
Exactly. Yeah, crazy. Right. So all of that stuff, like there's huge opportunity there. But I feel like if they only are adding things, like all of this fancy
Yeah.
stuff, and they're not really like making it more user friendly, like why hasn't Photoshop or Premiere or those things, why hasn't the UI changed in like 10 years? Like
It's,
I
yeah.
I want them to kind
It's
of
called
take.
backward compatibility. It
Yeah.
needs to work with old files and stuff like that. And I
This
also
is
think
true.
that kind of like the old concept of software, hey, you download this from the internet and update the new
Yeah,
version versus cloud-based, you always work on the new version, is kind of like an old approach
for
to,
sure. And I'm sure it's a
yeah, software
huge hurdle
development.
for them
Yeah.
to go that
So,
direction now.
so you did you did the Adobe kind of like thing. Did you went back to freelancing or did you get a job afterward? What happened?
Technically, I guess was freelancing, but I was full time working with this startup. So it was myself and three guys from Germany. So it wasn't, like a W-2 job, but I was working full time for them along with continuing my YouTube channel and stuff. And so that was kind of a crazy experience. Like, again, somewhere in the middle between working for yourself and working for a company. It was just this cool idea that these guys had, and they brought me on as the design lead. So I did the UI UX for this app as well as the web design, any like visual assets, the branding, video stuff, marketing stuff, pitch deck, like all the design stuff, which was really cool.
How did they find you?
So they found me. Interestingly enough, I did a YouTube video where I was critiquing the design of what is the audio only app that was popular for like 2 seconds during COVID. The audio only social media app.
Clubhouse? Clubhouse?
Yeah, Clubhouse. Thank
Yeah.
you. So I did a whole video where I was like, this is how I would improve the UI UX of Clubhouse or whatever. And because they
Didn't
were
seem to
doing
save them.
no, it didn't. They really should have listened to me. No, but this guy who was looking for, designers, I guess came across my video. And since they were doing a social media type of app, they thought that I could be a good fit. So that was kind of fun. That was the first time I
At what
got.
point you decided I'm going to do YouTube videos and why? I mean, because
Yeah,
that's not an obvious choice for many people.
Yep, that started during my Adobe residency. So, as I was doing kind of like speaking engagements, attached to Adobe, like I was basically giving workshops on XD and speaking with like aspiring designers and stuff, doing portfolio reviews. I really enjoyed that like teaching, I guess, route. And so I was looking at a couple past residents who had started mostly doing stuff on Instagram, but a couple of people had started successful YouTube channels, and I was like, well, why not? Felt like I had a little bit of a leg up in terms of being employed by Adobe at the moment. Like that gets you some street cred online.
Did they help
and
you?
I was like,
did they help with distribution and
they did,
like, getting good
yeah.
views? That's so awesome.
Yep. They would every once in a while share out a video on Twitter, like a link to one of my videos on Twitter. That was mostly how they like were able to sort of help. But yeah, so it was just a good time to do it. And I started it and really, really enjoyed it. And, you know, I've been off and on creating since then. I kind of go, again, I go in waves depending on what's going on. It's still not a super sustainable income stream for me, which is why I don't focus on it really full time. But I do love it. I just love the I mean, you know, the teaching aspect is really rewarding to be able to sort of take stuff that you're doing in real life. Like clients that I'm working with, a lot of them will let me, after they launch or even before they launch, share stuff on my YouTube channel and really break it down, like the real behind the scenes of a project, which is cool.
Yeah. That's this thing, by the way, that it's funny that you said I can't do it because it's not an income stream. You know, I think, you know, I did it for like 3 years every day, not as an income stream. And then at some point, you know, when I moved from freelancing to teaching, it did become my income stream, direct or indirect. And I got to say, it's way more fun when it's not your income stream and you can do whatever you want and only talk about, you know, the case studies and the thing. I'm trying to bring that back for myself, you know?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that. And so that's why because the amount of like time investment up front that you, I'm sure, put in before it became an income stream, that's a lot.
Yeah, for sure. But again, I wasn't doing it. I don't think you can do it saying, okay, if I put 1,000 hours, it's going to generate whatever. You don't know that. Yeah. And it's, you know, if you calculate the hours, it's going to end up like I worked in McDonald's or something, right?
Exactly.
It's just like, it's uncalculatable, I guess.
100%. 100%. And so when you're doing something like my channel where I am one person and I can only really put out, you know, one video a week if it's going to be a good video, it's also tricky to have to rely on sponsors. And I get so many sponsor requests for companies that I would never use their product. And so it becomes really difficult. Like I have genuinely about 5 to 10 like software companies that I work, you know, like I use, like in my suite, in my process and my like recommended things. If someone outside of that, those 10 companies reaches out, I don't feel like I should work with them. So that really limits how I can make money.
So my problem is this. It's like, if they reach out to me and I don't use them, I don't want to talk about them.
I don't want to talk about them.
If their product is good, I want to talk about it even if I'm not getting paid.
Exactly.
and that for me, that happened with Webflow, right? You know, I started talking about them just because I was so excited. Eventually, I've made them pay me for a while, but you know, it was just like, I'm going to do it anyway, right? So it's just might as well be a good fit, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. Right now we're getting tons of sponsorship requests for YouTube, which we don't do. But now we also have a big newsletter. So now I was like, hey, I see other people like actually getting money sponsorship from, you know, newsletter. So maybe we do sponsorship for that. But now I'm also in the same kind of like spot where I'm like, is this going to be a good fit? Not going to be a good fit. And yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to match it.
It is. It's like the whole reason that someone would want to go off on their own, work for themselves, you know, create this like YouTube channel or whatever it is that is just their own and they can make all the decisions. It's very like opposite from like, okay, now I need to attach myself to the 2 companies that I use all the time, like Webflow and Figma. Like if I need to get them to pay me consistently, it's like, okay, then I'm just working for them. It's like, it's a very hard balance.
Yeah, it's true. So I don't think you've mentioned how you got into the Adobe program. Did you have to apply or something? Or like, how does that work?
Yes. I guess I did skip over that. So, yes, you apply with a pitch deck for the project that you want to work on. So, I decided that if I got, the position that I would want to spend my time working on the integration between software and wellness. So, like, just kind of like fun wellness apps. So the one I did was aromatherapy, like a smart aromatherapy app. I did one related to like
Wait,
testing
so
the.
that's what you've pitched them? Or like, I'm going to
I
use
pitched
Adobe XD to design this one, this, and this.
exactly, yes. I
Okay.
can't actually remember in my pitch deck how specific I got, but I think I pitched this whole theme of like wellness and technology. And then I listed 3 or 4 sort of ideas within that of like, I could create this app that does X, Y, and Z. And I want to explore, will this help people feel more, 'cause it was during COVID, right? So the aromatherapy thing was like, how can I help people sort of segment their day and feel like, okay, at this time I'm working. This is like the aroma that is playing or is, in my room whenever I'm supposed to be working. And then it switches, it smart switches to this more relaxing type of aroma whenever I'm supposed to be like winding down for the day, maybe cooking some dinner and like, that kind of thing. That was the idea. It was all very like COVID based. I feel like a lot of designers did this like, oh, now that it's
Now you should be
COVID, we
making a
could.
sourdough bread thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I put together this pitch deck and what else was it? I think it was mostly the pitch deck, and I think I attached a resume. I don't think they cared too much about your resume, but it was mostly like, okay, what will you spend time doing and how will you share it with the community? And so I said, oh, I didn't even think I was going to do a YouTube channel yet. I was like, I'm going to share on social media. I'm going to do these fun challenges on like, Instagram and all of this stuff. That's kind of how the pitch was set up. What are you going to work on? How is it going to benefit the community? And how are you
Did you
going to
already
share
have
it?
kind of like Instagram audience at that point? Is it only for
Nope,
influencers?
not at all. No, I had very, very normal, just friends following me on
Got
Instagram.
it.
Yeah. So they're really just looking for like potential, like new and upcoming,
Yeah.
designers, creatives who are going to really put the work in to maybe make themselves a platform and be able to be like a long-standing influencer for Adobe. So yeah, I somehow got the position from that. Oh, there were a couple interviews for sure. There were a couple phone interviews and, Zoom interviews with the various folks on both like the community and marketing team and also on the product teams.
So you said you've got a bunch of pros and cons for like freelancing or getting a job. How do you
Yeah.
feel? How do you feel these days?
Yeah, these days I'm really liking the freelance life. I think a lot of times I'll sort of scare myself financially into thinking that I need something full time, or something, like where I'm getting like a salary. But ultimately, I think I'm always gonna fall back into like wanting to work for myself. I have at this point, like my YouTube channel is actually a really great source for new clients. And that has been working really well for me. It's not like people reach out every week or anything, but anytime someone does reach out, it ends up being someone that's really great to work with for whatever reason. And so that's been a really good thing for me. So yeah, I guess pros at the moment I'm feeling are like I'm working on things that are just really fun. Like I don't get bored of what I'm working on
Do you
because it's
do mainly
normally
projects or you also do retainers? Or now it's trendy to
so
say design subscriptions.
I don't do design subscriptions, but I should look into that. No, I'm mostly projects and then less so retainer work, but a lot of times my clients will come back and say, okay, we're doing another phase. Like I'll work on them for their MVP and then they'll come back, even months later and say, okay, we want to work on this now, or what if we added this feature, or, that kind of thing. So it does become a lot of good ongoing work. but project based. I'll always just sort of, price it by a project fees and stuff like that. But yeah, a big con for me for working for a company was I would get bored so fast. Like I'm the kind of person that gets super into an idea. I felt like anytime I would work at a company, I'd have all these ideas of how this product could be better and exactly zero control. So I'm like so invested for the first like 6 months. And then after that, when I really realized like nothing I'm saying, like even though some people are agreeing with me and we're like, putting together these like groups of people that are working on this thing to try to like make this thing better, they never go anywhere, at least in my experience. It's like you just don't have enough power as a product designer, or even a senior product designer working on a bigger team. And so that was kind of
I have
my
a similar experience. For me, it's mainly just like I come there with all of my energy. I'm like huge learning curve first 6 months, getting to know them, new projects. So
Yeah.
it's very exciting. And after that, I'm kind of like, okay, I get it. Spent 6 months. I'm like, actually, I'm a little bit bored. And then after a year,
Totally.
it's like my year is like, okay, I'm here a year. Bye.
That's
I'm gone.
exactly been my pattern. Yes, that's totally my pattern as well. I think like each time, like the last company I worked for was, I'll just say the company, they're not gonna mind. It's called Lunchbox Technologies. And it was cool. I really liked it. It was sort of like an answer to the Uber question of like, okay, Uber Eats and like Postmates are taking away so much money from small restaurants. And so like it's almost not worth those restaurants being on Uber Eats and Postmates. But that's where a lot of their business comes from. So it's this like vicious cycle of they're literally losing money, all the stuff, especially during COVID, it was a big issue. And so their whole thing is creating these like custom apps, like ordering apps with a completely different like financial model, like of how they charge restaurants so that it's much more friendly
But
to
individual
restaurants, basically.
app for each restaurant.
Individual apps all on the same platform. So Lunchbox is a software company. It's not like a design agency doing individual apps. We kind
No,
of
but
have
it's kind of like a template, and then
Yes.
the customer downloads the app of the restaurant, not like a marketplace.
Exactly.
Funny, I worked in a very similar company when I was
Really?
freelancing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was totally on board with the idea. I loved working on it. I was actually working on like the customer experience. So it was really cool to be working on something that like tons of people were using. The company was a little split on like how to move forward. It was still a startup, and it just felt like I couldn't really make enough of a difference for me to stay that engaged. I was so engaged for the first 6 months. And then also there was a round of layoffs. So a lot of people I was working with got laid off, and I in turn had to do more work and was working with people that I just didn't like as much. And so it was really rough. And so that was kind of my last, experience working in a company. Like you said, after like, I think it was like 9 months that I made it, I was like, nah, I'm done.
So
like, I feel like
by the statistics, you're a part of the Great Resignation, is what I feel
Yeah.
like. A lot of people after coming back from COVID are like, you know what? Actually, we're gonna quit.
I think I am part of that. Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So now I feel like my projects are always changing. Like I usually don't work on something more than 2 or 3 months, and if I do, then it's usually after a break of, coming back and I have like most of the control. Like I want to, of course, include the clients and like all the decision making, but I'm the only designer. I'm the only like strategist, all this stuff. Like, yeah, I'm not, this full scale like agency that can do all this research and all this, but like I think I can help like a really like solid niche of people who have these ideas and want to bring them to life. And that's kind of what I'm going towards at the moment, is like getting really good at helping those companies be successful. And I'm hoping that in the next year I'll see some of the clients I've worked with like become really successful, to sort of propel me to do more of it. But for now, it's at least just like really fun and exciting, and I get to work with people without having to like, work at a company. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
It's actually amazing to see it. I remember one of my last clients I worked with them as just like very small team, and then, did their branding, their app, their website. And then a year later, I came back to the office. There were like 30 people there. I mean, they were like 3 when I started. And then a year later, they already had like 300 people at 2 floors in the company, like making, I'm like, what the, and see kind of like my logo, like on the walls and like graffiti artists, like Google style, offices. I'm like, what is going on here? And at that point, they have teams of people more talented than me redoing everything, like looks better. I'm like feeling bad about doing, because I'm just a single person, right?
Exactly.
So yeah,
That's
so it's
awesome.
it's amazing to see.
I know.
Yeah.
It's the best. They're really, I kind of got that feeling early on. I did a logo it's so funny. So my mom was hired to do a logo. She's an artist, but she had never really used a computer to do a logo. But her friend, was starting this yoga wellness studio in our neighborhood. And she was like, oh, my friend Tracy, which is my mom, is super creative. Like, I'm going to hire her to do a logo. This is when I was in college, I think. And my mom was like, Maddie, help. Like, I don't know how to do a logo. And so we like kind of worked on it together. Like, we were like, I was helping her like pick fonts and all this stuff. It was like just this fun collaborative thing that was just for a friend. I don't even know if she paid us. I think she paid us a few $100s. And to this day, that was like maybe 10 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
And to
that
this
business
day,
exists.
That business still exists. And it's in the neighborhood that I grew up in. So anytime I'm like walking down to get like a smoothie from the smoothie place that's below the yoga studio, I see that logo. They have not updated the logo. It's still on all their stuff. It's like on a storefront, type thing. It's so surreal. That was like the first logo I've ever designed in my life.
It's amazing and embarrassing at the same time.
Exactly.
So what do you feel about after you've worked with teams and stuff and now you're freelancing, working from home? Is it lonely for you? Do you miss working out with other people? Do you miss collaboration?
I don't miss the Zoom calls. That's the thing, is if I were ever to go back to a job, the past few like company jobs I've had have always been remote. The Zoom calls really aren't the same. You know what I mean? Like you have like 5 minutes of small talk and then you kind of get down to business. And with like your friends in the company, like sometimes we'd go on like the Figma chat and chat while we design and all that stuff. So that was fun. But there's not a whole lot of socialization that I miss out on, to be honest. So I've been trying to work just like at my computer for most of the day. And then I signed up for a ceramics class so that I could get some in-person,
That's
like,
important. That's important.
Yeah.
To see people.
See people. Exactly. So now that we're, in the house, like I'm not dedicating a bunch of my time to like babysitting contractors and all of that stuff. Like I finally do have the space to create that balance, getting my work done and, kind of isolating myself a little bit, but then going to play pickleball and, seeing friends and going do some ceramics classes. I want to do some more art classes and that stuff. So that's kind of how I'm doing the balance. But how do you kind of get that balance?
First of all, so I'm in a co-working space, but I am.
Oh, that's right.
I have my own room. However, I have in the same working space. I have a couple of friends who are just like old-time friends from military service. So they're sitting in the same kind of like compound. So I get the benefit of I can sit here. I like to be alone and so I can focus and also I record videos and stuff. But if I want to go have a coffee break, I can sit down with them. We go eat lunch together. So I kind of get both the benefit of I'm alone. I do my own thing. I got my privacy, but also I get to enjoy kind of like with the social thing.
That's great.
Yeah, and I have my friends who I hang out with besides work, but
Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of like how I do it over work.
Yeah.
But I have to be
that's
honest,
nice.
also like to eat alone lunch by myself and read
Yeah.
a book. So I love
Yeah.
that. I
I
would
know.
go to
I
a
like
restaurant
to.
and read a book and that's it.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to talk to me. So,
Totally. I'm the same way. Like a couple times a week, I'll go. So a couple of my friends who live close by, one in particular, is also part of the Great Resignation. And so we're sort of doing a similar thing. And she lives like walking distance. So we'll sometimes go walk and usually it's breakfast, like before we start our day together, which is nice. But I'm the same way. I like to make my lunch and sit and like catch up on YouTube. And so that's kind of like my decompression midday, and like sit outside sometimes and just like in the quiet. So yeah, sadly, I don't miss the socialization of working at a company so much.
no, it's not necessarily. I mean, I think it's funny you've mentioned that when you got started, you were like, you didn't even know freelancing exists. And it was kind of like,
Yeah.
obviously, I need to get a job. For me,
Right.
I started playing around with Photoshop in high school. And so my first experience was friends and then clients asking me, oh, so you know Photoshop, so do my logo, right? Like the
Yeah.
friends of my family, so help me out. So
Right.
my first experience was kind of like, you can call it freelancing or you can call it like helping other people
Right.
who need help with the skills that you have. So that was kind of
Exactly.
like my obvious. And then I also went to college, and when I finished, I was like, I don't want to sit home in my underwear doing work all by myself. I'm young. I want to meet people. I want to sit in an
Yeah.
office and learn from other designers. And I did
Yeah.
that. And I think it was great. I mean, I met my wife at work. I mean, if I
Oh,
would sit
cool.
home, if I would sit home alone, maybe I wouldn't meet her. So
Totally.
I think if for young people, I would say, yeah, go to an office. It's great. I mean, it's for a period in your life. It's
For a
fun.
period.
Again,
Exactly.
not a remote, because as you said, that's a completely different vibe. But go to an office with other people in the same area. It creates kind of like a social thing and
Yeah.
a network.
Right.
A lot of
Yeah,
these
do you think
people.
that's going away a little bit for younger designers, like the the opportunity to
think-
have that type of like community at work?
Definitely. I mean, do you know Scott Galloway? He's like a
I don't think so.
branding professor. He's like a branding professor at NYU, and he's got like podcasts and stuff like that.
Okay.
But he is now very big on telling everybody that because of the whole remote thing, then everybody stays at home and like young
Yeah.
people don't meet and they don't have sex, and it's just like it's bad for society that this happens because
Crazy.
people will not get married and stuff like that. So I think it
Whoa.
happens, but
Yeah.
and it's bad that it's happening. But on
Mm-hmm.
the other hand, and I know this from our students,
Mm.
not everybody lives in a big city with a lot of these opportunities.
Right.
So yeah, it sucks if you were in a big city and now you're not benefiting from people around you. That sucks. But
Mm-hmm.
you can go to a ceramics class. But if you're living in a
Yeah.
small town anyway, you would probably not have designer friends in an office or studio to go to anyway. So now if you can work remotely with somebody or be parts of online communities like ours, then you get at least to
More
have
opportunity.
some kind of a network. Yeah. And at least in some way kind of like socialize and hang out online, which is not
Yeah.
the same, but it's,
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, that is like, it's sort of the dichotomy of this entire thing, right? It's like, you can do so much more now that everything's online, but at the expense of what, I think that's what I'm sort of coming to terms with, is like, at the expense of what? Like, I did get to have that, opportunity as a younger designer. Like, I even think about like my college experience and how I think a lot of people are missing out on that college experience. Like, I got to have like a tight knit group of designers in my program. It was like 20 of us who graduated. I think I could text any one of them right now and catch up, or like, whatever. Like, we worked together so like 24/7. It felt like we had a studio, everyone had a desk. It was very much an in-person vibe. And I feel so bad for especially designers going into programs where that's just not a thing anymore. There's like very little collaboration. You're doing all your projects like online. Like, I just think it's a bummer.
I have the same experience from my school. So the funny thing is, I went to college after already working as a designer for a few years. So I didn't go there to learn software. I mean,
Right.
there were Photoshop classes and Flash classes and whatever, which
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't even attending them. I went to like whatever typography, branding classes.
Yep.
But the key benefits from this experience were, number one, having the opportunity to get feedback on my work from like
Exactly.
experts. Number two, the friends that I've made there, which
Yes.
very similar to what you said. Like, some of them are still my friends, like lifelong friends. Some of them got me so many opportunities through the
Yep.
years, where just
Same.
like every time I have, like, we're sharing opportunities. So one thing, when I started Flux Academy, I really wanted to find a way to create these two things. So
Yeah.
the feedback on work, we've managed to do that. We've got a team of mentors and we're like giving feedback, and we've got office hours and stuff like that.
Totally.
Building the relationships and creating friendships, I don't think we've mastered that. I mean,
It's so difficult
sometimes it
online.
happens. Yeah, it's very difficult, but it's kind of like my goal to find a way to facilitate that. Now we
Yeah, I
have
love
something
that.
new called accountability partners. We're trying to hook people together for them to study
cool.
together, but it's a process because it's difficult.
Right. Yeah. Like, the reason I got so close with these people is because we were in person together. Like, I don't want to say trauma bonding. That's so dramatic. But our
Yeah.
classes were hard and our professors were tough on us. And so we really wanted to help each other out so that we weren't like humiliated in a critique or whatever. It's like you help each other out when the stakes are that high. Like
That's really powerful. How do you
Yeah.
increase the stakes so people
Right.
are afraid
Right.
to fail and they want to help each other?
Yeah. Right. Fear.
Yeah.
No.
I remember when
it's
I was in
hard.
school, people were like bragging about, I pulled an all-nighter to work on this. I was like,
Totally.
I'm not. The good
I
thing
didn't
about
pull a single all-nighter.
exactly, that was my thing. I was like, if you're pulling all-nighters now, wait until there's a client paying you. You'll be doing that as well. I'm setting
Yep.
my, red lines right now. I'm not working through the night, not now and not
Yep.
later. And it's just like,
100%. Yeah, my friend, that's so funny. My best friend from the program and we were notorious for leaving studio first at like 8 p.m. or even sometimes like, 6, 7, or the day before we were done. Like, we would print our stuff. People would see us printing our stuff. They're like, they're already printing? Like, we were the ones that were like, we are not staying late. We're going out. Like, we just started early. And then while everyone else was like, I don't know what I'm doing for the project yet, we're like, nah, we're going to be done. And then we're going to be at a party while you guys are trying to print your work.
I think it's a really important to realize that, you set your deadlines. It's true
Yeah.
in school, but I mean,
Exactly.
no, the deadline is fixed, but you decide how close to the deadline you want to work.
Yes.
And that's true in school and it's true in real life as well. I hate working very close to the deadline.
Me too.
Now I'm struggling with this because, again, my personal preference is to always leave buffer and finish ahead of time because, you never know what happens and if there's
Yeah.
like something breaks. And so I like to work that way. Now, Burak from our team, for example, and you'll meet him when we'll
Yeah.
work on promoting the Figma course
Yeah.
because he'll collaborate with you on the marketing. But he has a different approach. He
Yeah.
is like, why should we finish working on this 2 days ahead of time? I can make this much better with extra 2 days. We can improve this. And imagine if we improve this, it's going to get more sales. It's going to get more results. So what do you want? Do you want to stop working right now or do you want more results? I'm like, I want more results. And then we end up working very close to the deadline.
Yeah.
And for me, it's stressful. Like it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but I have to make now the trade-offs between, hey, do you want to be comfortable or do you want to get better
Right.
results? So it's really interesting.
That is interesting because for certain things it is like the more you work on it, the better it's going to get.
I mean, but you can always, you can
But
take
you
this
can
rational
always
to
get
the
better.
extreme. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So like I find especially with YouTube, with my client work, I just have to work on it in dozens of small spurts because I find that my brain like works on the problem in the background and then I come back and I always can like, I can always get it to, okay, now I'm happy with it. And you shouldn't overwork like UX. You know what I mean? Like,
It's true
but
for
with-
everything.
yeah, but
I
with
think-
YouTube, I feel like there is like, oh, but I could like add more like fun edits to this, That's always the thing I kind of compromise on is like, but I'm tired. So I'm just gonna post
Yeah.
it. But
There's an important principle of good enough
yeah.
that, in business, I mean, if you try to, let's say everybody's talking about delighting the customers and doing
Yeah.
what's best. If I try to maximize delight for the customer, I'm going to go bankrupt, right? Because I'm going to work on
Yes.
this forever. I'm going to put
Right.
way too much work on this. It's going to be so expensive. I'm going to make it very
Yeah.
cheap for the clients because that's what it's going to delight them, right?
Right.
So I'm going to go out of business. So at some point there's kind of like a threshold of where it's best quality, accepted quality for the client, let's say. I think that as designers, we've got like very high bar for quality. So we always want to
Yep.
push it even beyond that good enough stage, but that causes us to overwork ourselves or the project ends up not being profitable again because we work too much. It's
Yeah,
really
I've
important
found-
to find that sweet spot.
Exactly. I have found working with my clients that if I just sort of have this habit now of setting an expectation and then delivering just over the expectation. So, and that's worked very well for me because I feel like people rarely do exactly what they say they're going to do. And so if you do that and then just a little bit more, like clients are thrilled. And that has gotten me very far, especially in a business where like referrals are so important and repeat customers are so important. I feel like, yeah, that's advice I give to anyone working with clients is like, don't overpromise and don't try to like, oh yeah, I'm going to make this so good. You're going to be so delighted, all of this stuff, but also go a little bit above the expectation so that you stand out from like other people they've worked with. That balance is like hard to strike, especially with like pickier clients. I haven't had a picky client in a while, thank God, but I have had them before and it's always hard to please people like that. But for the most part, you really can delight a client if you just do exactly what you say you're going to do when you say it's going to be done.
I agree 100%. And I'll give a very concrete example of how I do
Yeah.
it. So I always tell my clients, we only have 3 rounds of revisions.
Yes,
But
I do.
I know I'm going to do at least 5.
Yep.
But I tell them and I put it on the contract, I only going to do 3 of them. And then when we get to the 3 of them and they keep asking for stuff, basically I'm telling them, look,
Yeah.
you got what you deserved, right? I should be
Yeah.
now charging you a lot of money. Look at the contract.
Exactly.
But because I like you,
have that
and because
buffer,
I
yeah.
want you to be happy, I'm going to do it. So now
Right.
in that moment, immediately I'm over delivering because I'm doing
Exactly.
more than what I promised. And you look like a hero. So that's not very
100%.
difficult to
and
do.
you know you're going to do that. So it's not like you're
Yeah,
going
yeah.
out of business
I calculate
because
the
you do
price
that.
based
you
on.
calculated that.
Yeah,
exactly.
of course.
I do the same exact thing. Yeah.
Very nice, Maddy. That was really an awesome chat. That was really
Yeah,
fun.
I enjoyed
That was
that.
a really fun conversation.
Yeah.
Super.
It's good to catch up with you.
All right, so we're going to keep working together on the Figma course. I'm very excited to see how it
Me
comes
too.
up, and we'll start ramping up your more content with you, I guess,
Yeah.
on September before we're launching it. So be prepared to see Maddy on our channel more. Amazing! Congratulations on your new house and on
Thank
your
you.
husband's new job. Everything
Thanks.
falls into place.
Yes. Yes. Finally. Thanks so much,
Amazing.
Ron.